Tal Doron. Throughout his years of software engineering, Tal started mastering agile software engineering practices such as clean code, advanced refactoring techniques, TDD, BDD, and all that jazz. Today, he works as an all-hands consultant, trainer, and technical coach at NICE. And in this talk, we're going to be seeing some very exciting and hot refactoring action from him. Tal, the stage is yours. Good luck.
So thank you very much for that introduction, Akos. So my name is Tal. I hope everybody sees my screen. My name is Tal. I'm a software engineer and a trainer at NICE, like Akos said. My main technological stack is Java. I also write lots in .NET, and in the recent times, I'm also been using Node with JavaScript.
Are you sharing your screen right now?
Yes, you don't see it?
No, can you try resharing it, please?
Yes, definitely. Let's see, share screen. Yes. Do you see it now?
Yes, it's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I don't need to say again that my name is Tal. I'm working for NICE as a software engineer, mainly on Java and C# up until recently. This was about the majority of my technological stack. But recently, I've also been interested in Node and some web technologies and even Flutter for mobile. In the past 3 years or so, I've stepped out of the development teams and have assumed the position of a technical coach, which means I go throughout most of the development teams in our company, and I teach them a training which is called ASE, which stands for Agile Software Engineering. And basically, it's all about the techniques that we see on the right. Okay, if it's emergent design and clean code, refactoring, design principles, patterns, testable code, valuable tests, and the test-first approach with TDD and BDD. Now, today, we're going to mainly focus on refactoring. So I want to start with the following diagram. So this is a diagram taken from a blog post by Jeff Atwood, which actually comes to answer the questions as software developers, what do you usually do with our time when we're writing code, okay? So according to this diagram, we spend very little time writing new code, right? We spend much more time modifying existing code, and basically the majority of times goes to understanding code. Now, after reading the blog post, actually, I saw that it is not based on any numbers, but still it's based on a feeling, and I could heavily relate, and I hope you can relate as well. I mean, at the beginning, we write code, and then we read it over and over and over again in order to understand where to modify, what do we need to do, and what it actually does. So if this is true, and the majority of time goes to understanding code, if I want to increase my velocity, I need to get very good at understanding code. So clean code, the reason I like clean code is because it's always relevant. It's relevant for working with scary monoliths. It's relevant for working with a scary pack of microservices. And it's also relevant whenever I'm working with serverless functions. I can do quite a lot of damage if the function that I'm writing is very unreadable. Now, at the beginning of the project, everything is always super nice and cool. But then for every project, things starting to go a bit rough. We have multiple contributors, right? And we also have complexity that it keeps rising and rising and rising. We also have stress, okay? Stress, which the first feature is probably a bit more complicated than the second one. We have change of requirements and we have timeline, and sometimes it's just bugs and lack of skill that causes our beautiful project to become a bit what we call legacy. And our beautiful project actually starts to smell, okay? So the only thing that we can do about it is actually use the art of refactoring. Now, sometimes when the knight with the shining armor comes, it's actually too late, right? If the project actually looks like this, perhaps it's too late. But if it comes after every time the band-aid is actually shown in our project, so perhaps things will fade away and we should be good to go with the clean project. So how can we get good at refactoring? That's the question. So I've been saying the word refactoring a lot. What is refactoring? So Martin Fowler here, which is hiding behind this book, is saying a change made to the internal structure of software to make it easier to understand and cheaper to modify without changing its observable behavior. Great, I want to change the structure of the code without changing the behavior. Now I can talk a lot about refactoring, but the best way to do it is actually to show refactoring. So I'm going to use a kata, which is called the Gilded Rose kata. If anybody doesn't know the word kata, a kata is a word in Japanese, which means form, okay? And it's actually, if you've seen movies or if you're practicing martial arts, it's actually a sequence of movement that I do in order to get it into my muscle memory. So came along Dave Thomas and said, okay, let's take this idea to the software world and let's write code katas. Code katas are programming exercises, okay? Which are relatively easy, and I want to do them in order to practice something. So I'm going to do a refactoring kata, which is called the Gilded Rose. So what is the Gilded Rose? The Gilded Rose is a golden rose, but it's also a store in a game called Warcraft, okay, if someone ever played the game. Now, I'm going to show you the requirements. I'm going to go over it super fast. While I'm going over it, try to think about if you would need to write it, how would you write it? How would you code it? How would you design it, okay? So I'm going to go super fast because my clock is ticking. So first of all items have a selling value. It's a store, okay? Imagine a store with an inventory, and inside the inventory, we have objects which are called items, okay? And these are the requirements. All items have a selling value, which denotes the number of days we have to sell the item. Great. All items have a quality value, which denotes how valuable the item is. At the end of each day, our system lowers both values for every item by 1. This is pretty simple, right? I have items. Each item have 2 fields, item selling and a quality. Selling is like an expiry date. Quality is how valuable the item is. At the end of each day, the system lowers both values. Great. That's pretty simple, but this is where it gets interesting. So once the day sell by date has passed, quality degrades twice as fast, okay? But the quality of an item is never negative. I mean, if it gets to 0, it stays in 0, doesn't matter what days are passing. Aged brie, it's a special item, like the cheese brie, if you know it, actually increases in quality the older it gets, okay? Increases by 1. The quality of an item is never more than 50. So if we have something like aged brie, which the quality increases, so it never goes over 50. We have another special item which is called sulfurous. And sulfurous is a legendary item. It's like a burning hammer if you play in the Warcraft game. So it's a legendary item and it never has to be sold or decreased in quality. What does it mean? If I have a sulfurous item in my store, so if it's initialized with values of selling 5 and quality 5, for example, stays with 5 and 5, okay? Doesn't change. Last one, backstage passes, like aged brie, increases in quality as the selling value approaches, and quality increases by 2 when there are 10 days or less to sell it, and by 3 when there are 5 days or less to sell it. But it reaches 0 once the sell by date has passed. So imagine like you have backstage passes to a concert, okay? So when the concert approaches, the quality increases, okay? But when the concert is over, so we don't have anything to do with it, so the quality degrades to 0, okay? So it's a store, you don't have to remember everything, okay? Just imagine the store with 2 fields, selling and quality. We have special items like aged brie, sulfurous, and backstage, which behave a bit differently. And in the end of each day, the values change, okay? So this is what we need to write. Great, so I hope you're thinking about some kind of solution or a solution to this problem. I'm gonna show you 2 suggested solutions. First of all, people are used to write in object-oriented and they're used to write using inheritance. So people say, okay, I'm going to create an abstraction which will build the item. I'm going to create derivatives, okay, like brie and sulfurous and backstage, and I'm going to override the behaviors for update quality and update selling accordingly. Great. Other people that doesn't like inheritance sometimes suggest some kind of a pattern which is called the strategy pattern, if you're familiar. I'm going to have an item with selling and quality, and I'm going to hold 2 different behaviors, okay? One behavior would be selling behavior, the other behavior would be quality behavior, and someone will inject me with this behavior, and the behavior will have different implementation. So if you like to favor composition over inheritance, you would usually go on the right side, okay? And of course, there are many more solutions. These are solutions that are for people usually from the object-oriented world. Of course, there are functional solutions, and there are many things that we can do. Great. So do you remember that I told you this is a refactoring kata? This is not something that we're going to write on our own. So someone has already written the code for us, okay? So I'm going to look at some code. Okay, so this is called the Gilded Rose kata, and someone wrote it as follows. Now, I'm going to show you the code for it. So we have public class item. Okay, an item has 3 fields: string name, int selling, and int quality, and a constructor which gets all of them. And someone has overridden the toString method. That's great. And then someone wrote the Gilded Rose class, and the Gilded Rose class actually looks like this. We have a class Gilded Rose, an array of items, and we have one method which is called update quality, which actually does everything. Okay. Great, so I can't see you, but I'm guessing some of you are nodding your head like no, and some of you are like feeling comfortable because this is how your code base looks like, because this is how lots of code bases looks like. And that's a problem. So what we don't like about it, we don't like the fact that it's long. We don't like the fact that everything is nested. We don't like the fact that we have magic string and magic numbers, and this code is very hard to maintain, okay? But it's very hard to maintain, but I do have a test for it, okay? I do have one test, and this test is called quality and selling behave as expected. I create some items in this method, okay? And when I create some items, I actually do Gilded Rose, new Gilded Rose, and I give it the items, and then I call the API of update quality. After that, I'm doing lots of assertion according to the different items, and I have many, many different items from all types, okay? This is a test, and if I run it, it should actually pass. So we're going to see it pass in a second, great. But if it's passing and everything is working, so what do we have left to do? So for our story, we bought this company, Gilded Rose. We are now maintaining this product. And of course, all the original developers are now working for a different company with higher salary, and everything is great for them. And now we need to add a new product to this company, to this product, okay? A new item to this product, okay? And the product manager is saying we're going to add new items and we're going to remove items. This is going to be a living thing. Okay. So the requirement is as follows. I need to add something which is called conjured. Okay. And conjured will be an item which the quality degrades twice as fast. That's what's happening. Okay. And this is what I need to do. Now, before I do that, I'm going to jump back to the presentation. I'm going to jump back here. And before we do that, I want to talk about 2 things, and then I'm going to start pretty fast. So first of all, we know that the only constant is change. And I want to look at this tweet by Kent Beck, which is saying, for each designer change, make the change easy. Warning, this may be hard, and then make the easy change. Okay, what do we mean by that? So when you're introducing a change to the system, first make the system easy to change, okay? Now, this process of doing that might be hard, but you should go for it, okay? And then make the easy change. Now, this is something that's going to guide us. And another thing, I'm going to do efficient refactoring, okay? Now, everybody does refactoring all the time, but I think that if you talk about the subject of efficient refactoring, it's actually composed of 3 main things. First of all, I need some knowledge in clean code and design, okay? Now, for this session, we're going to assume we have some knowledge in clean code and design, okay? Because I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on 2 main things. First of all, I'm going to use my IDE and do everything automatically as much as I can. And I'm going to keep my system constantly working, okay? And that's very important for refactoring. Refactoring is not changing code, not compiling, not working, going to lunch, coming back, and not remembering what you've done. Efficient refactoring is actually keeping your code constantly working. If I need to stop now, I'm going to check everything in, and still things will still work. Great. 3 main refactoring moves that we're going to see. First of all, the III, isolate, improve, and inline. I'm going to talk about the twilight code. Simplify, and as you can see, the if is bolded here, using split, merge, and flip, and basically think positive using invert if. Now, lots of the moves that I'm doing are based on a great video, which is called Refactoring with IntelliJ by Bill Wake. And the code base is by Emily Butcher, the Gilded Rose code base, and you can find it in almost every language if you want to practice it later on. Great, so without further ado, I'm going to start, and I don't have much time, so I'm going to go into super speed mode, and let's see how it goes for me. So I'm here. Great, so where do I start? How do I make this code easy to change? So first of all, IntelliJ, I'm using IntelliJ, so it offers me many things, okay? First of all, do you see these highlighted things in yellow? It is saying, okay, you can actually use it, replace it with enhanced for, so you don't need all the indices. Great, so I'm going to take its advice. Sometimes I don't take it, and sometimes I do. Next thing, I'm looking at what it does, and actually it has an update quality method which goes and iterates over all the items and does many, many things to them. Now this is too big for me, so I'm going to go with isolate, improve, and inline. I'm going to use a shortcut which wraps everything, and I'm going to wrap the scope. And once it's too much for me, I'm going to do one scope less, and I'm going to extract it into a method, and I'm going to simply call it update one item. Great. So a little bit better, let's continue. Update one item, what does it do? So update one item actually does everything. Okay, so I want to continue isolating this. So I'm double clicking quality, as you can see, and IntelliJ actually highlights everything related to quality. So I can see that I update quality here and here and here and again here. Down below, I update sell-in, and here I also update quality, but this is in the special case where the sell-in is less than 0. If you remember for the requirements, it's a special case. So I'm going to divide it as follows. I'm going to take all the code up here, again, using Control W. I'm going to take all the code here, extract it to a method, and I'm going to call it update quality. Great. And then I'm going to take sell-in and do the same. I can see that sell-in is updated here and actually only here. Great, so I'm going to take this, extract it to a method. I'm going to call it update sell-in. Great, and I'm going to take all the scope inside this if item sell-in is less than 0, and I'm going to extract it into its own method, and I'm going to call it update expired. Expired. Great, so things are looking a bit better, still not good enough. And then I have this update quality method, which is actually not a very good name, right? Because it's doing practically everything. So I'm going to use this one. Yes, so I'm going to use Shift F6 in order to change the name, and I'm going to call it update items. Great. Now IntelliJ is smart. It's asking me, okay, do you want to also change? The overloaded method? And in my case, no. Okay, great. So I lost my mouse for some reason. So things are not going easy. Okay. So what's left? I'm going now to update quality, okay? And inside update quality, I want to continue. So in update name.equals HB, what can I do, okay? And not item.name.equals backstage, what's happening? So this is actually a very complex condition, okay? As you can see, we have a if not condition A and not condition B. Now, there's the research, there's a study that shows that humans are actually responding much better to positive conditions. Like if something is happening, let's do something, then rather than if something is not happening, let's do something, and it gets enhanced when the condition is very complicated like this one. So I want to take you back to your days of studies. If not A and not B, not A and not B, it's actually similar to not A or B, right? Do you remember that? So it doesn't matter if you remember that or not, because IntelliJ knows. And if I'll go here and I'm going to do invert if condition, so what happens? So what happens is now the if condition is working with the positive condition, and whatever I had inside the else is now actually inside the if, okay? So it actually inverted the entire method and things are looking much better for me. Okay, what's next? So I'm gonna take everything inside this if that we have up here, and I'm gonna, not everything actually. Yes, only this scope inside the if. I'm going to extract it into its own method, and I'm going to call it update bre or backstage. Why do I do that? It's actually because if you can see the method is good. Great. Now update bre or backstage is actually a nice method that I like to see. Why? Because it's small. So do you remember the isolate improve inline? So this is isolation. Now improve it, and afterwards I'm going to inline it. So look at this code. What do you see? I see many things that I don't like. First of all, I don't like this magic number, so I'm going to extract it into a constant, okay? And as you can see, I'm doing everything automatically, so I'm not running the test, okay? So it's going to be maximum quality, and I'm going to replace, yes, maximum quality. And actually, things are working pretty bad for me today because my mouse is now not working. So excuse me for that. So things are pretty difficult. So I'm going to take this maximum quality and I'm going to do this manually and replace it here. And I'm also going to replace it here. Great. Now I see the code duplication. Do you see it? So this is code duplication for me. So I'm going to extract it into its own method. And the method is going to be increase quality. Great. Now I'm going to keep original signature and I'm going to replace everything that I see. Okay. Now, before I did that, there's something annoying here because do you see this if up above? It's almost duplicated to what we've done. So I'm going to hit Control Z for a second. Okay. And before that, I'm looking at the code because it's small enough and I can see that, okay, if item.quality is less than maximum quality, so do quality equals item quality plus 1. Now, this is the logic about backstage. If it's backstage in this and the selling is less than 11, so you can still do quality plus 1, right? But you have to check before if it's not above the maximum quality, because if you remember the requirement, we have to be below 50. So I would argue that if I'll manually add this here, okay, and delete one from down here, I should still be good, okay? Now I'm not running the, I will run the test for this. It's not working. Yeah, so I'm having problems. Okay, doesn't matter. But so believe me that this should actually work. Now I'm going to take everything here and I'm going to also extract it into its own method. And I'm going to call it update increase quality. Increase quality. Great. So I'm going to keep original signature and I'm going to replace everything I see. And now this is better. Great. I see another duplication. Do you see it? Line 71 until 73. Okay. It's actually the same as line 75 and 77, but I have different numbers, this 11 and 6. So I'm going to do it in two phases. I'm going to extract this into its own variables. Okay. Then I'm going to extract this into its own method. And now IntelliJ is smart enough to pass me that own variable. So I'm going to do update by days.
I think you accidentally disabled your camera unless you did it on purpose.
No, I didn't do it on purpose.
Also, some people in the chat are saying that they think that you accidentally disabled your touchpad at some point, and that's why your mouse has...
Yes, I probably did. I'm pressing on things super fast, so...
Okay, I will not hold you up then. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, this is actually not, this was not the plan. I hope that people are still getting the pace and getting whatever we want to do. How did I disable the mouse pad? I'm not sure, but perhaps this approach. Oh, thank God. Okay, so thank you, those people who said it in the chat. I should have done it earlier. So 10 minutes to go, and we're entering even more frenzy mode. So sorry for that. I'm going to take the question time because of all of the problems. So now I'm going to inline these days. Okay, I don't actually need it. And now this method actually looks much better, in my opinion. Great. Now, do you remember the second thing that I said? It was called simplify. I want to simplify the ifs. Okay, so I'm going back to update quality, and inside update quality, I have still this if condition A or condition B do something to A or B. Now, I would do something very simple. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, you know what, please split it into two if statement, okay? And once I split it into two if statement, what happened is that I'm checking if it's age B, do something for B or backstage. If it's backstage, do something for B or backstage. So basically, I didn't change any logic, right? Before it was if A or B, do something to A or B. Now if A, do something to A or B, else if B, do something to A or B. So it's practically the same. Why did I do it? Because now I'm going to inline it, okay? So I'm going to inline it, and then I'm simply going to do inline all and remove the method. What it does, it actually spills the code instead of the method invocation, and deletes the original method. So I'm going to do that. So what happened here? inside my if else, I now have the same code that I've improved in the method, and the method itself is actually gone, okay? Why did I do it? Because look, if item names equals HB, increase quality. If it's backstage, do this. Question for you, is this condition ever true? Of course not, it's always false, right? So I can delete it. And this isolate improve inline, it's working incredibly also in production code. Again, if it's backstage, increase quality. If it's backstage, so update by days and update by days. Okay, this will always be true because it's inside of this if, right? So I'll delete the condition. Great, great. So this update quality is starting to look a bit better. I'm continuing. Now, I don't like the fact that this else if here is not ordered by type, because I want to go from this procedural solution into the polymorphic solution sometime, okay? And this procedural solution must be ordered by type in order for me to make the change very easily, okay? Because then I will take the if of the same type and I will extract it into an object, and that will be very simple. So I don't like the fact that this if is before that if. So what is an if inside an if? It's actually an and relationship, right? So let's merge them. I'm going to merge them. Great. Now, what is if condition A and B? A and B is actually symmetrical. It's like B and A. In programming, it's not always true because if A is false, sometimes B is not checked. But here, they are not dependent, right? I mean, the quality that is greater than 0 is not dependent with the name solved for us. So I'm going to flip them, okay? Flip. And then once I've flipped, I can split them again. Okay. Now, I see an if not. I told you I like to keep my ifs positive, so I'm going to do invert. And now I have this if, this condition, if it's true, so return. So I can safely say that I can add an else statement here, right? And I didn't change anything, right? Because I would return anyway, so this if would not be checked. Why did I do that? Because once I have else and inside of it if else if, I can hit merge. And as you can see, this update quality method, which is still not the prettiest, it's actually much better than it was, right? Nothing is nested, everything is understandable, and we can go forward. Great, I hope you're with me. Now I'm gonna do the same thing for the other method. So update selling, it's very short. I'm saying if not, so I'm checking, maybe it's better. I don't know, it's related to taste. I'm not gonna go over it. I'm gonna keep it as is, but update expired is still very complex, still 4 level of nested if. So let's tackle it really fast. So I see an if not, I do invert. I see, oh, where am I? Sorry, update expired. Yes, I see an if not, so I do invert if. Great, I see another if not, so I'm gonna do invert if. I see that this was actually not replaced automatically. If you remember, we extracted it into a method, which was called increase quality over the item. Great, so I see another if not, so I'm gonna invert it as well. Great, now this is something funny. Do you see that IntelliJ is highlighting for me item.quality minus item.quality? This is strange. This is actually simplify with 0. Else and still, if these conditions are not very good for me because I like to keep my conditions ordered according to type, we just talked about it. So I'm gonna do what I did before. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna merge it. There's no dependency between them. So I'm gonna flip it and then I'm gonna split it again. Great, now this is another if not, so I'm gonna do alt enter and then invert if. And now this is an if return, so I can manually add else here. And now that I can add an else here, so I can merge things up. So alt enter, merge, and merge. So if you remember this horrifying method, which actually now looks pretty simple, procedural, but very simple. Okay, 650, let's continue from here. So there's another duplication that I can see here. Do you see this if item.quality is greater than 0? And it's also here, this if item.quality is greater than 0. So I'm going to extract it to a method as well. This is going to be called decrease quality. And I'm going to keep original signature and I'm going to replace it. Great, great. Okay, so the code actually looks much better. I mean, let's take a look for a second. I have this Gilded Rose, which gets the item. I have update items method. I go with the for each loop and update one item. Update one item holds the algorithm, update quality, update selling. If the selling is less than 0, update expired. And update expired is actually doing if according to types. Okay, so it's understandable, not most beautiful, but still understandable. Update selling is very short. Update quality is also short and doing ifs according to types. And I have some small methods that helps me. Great, great. So now, how do I go from here to the polymorphic solution? That would be a good question. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it in a way that I'm going to stay always valid, and that's the main challenge here. So first of all, now, if I go to increase quality and I hit F6 on it, okay, so the IntelliJ is actually asking me, do you want to move this method to the item class? Why? Because look at this method. It actually gets an item, it checks on the item, and then it does something to the item. So it's actually a code smell which is called feature envy. Should it be part of item? Now, I don't want it to be part of item. I want it to be part of something else. Why? According to the legend, there's a troll that's guarding class item, and I cannot touch it. Okay, it's only to make the exercise a bit harder. I cannot touch it, and I cannot inherit from it, and I cannot do anything to it. Okay. So I'm going to introduce something else. I'm going to create this kind of wrapper classes, okay? These categories, and these categories are going to be the ones that actually will be responsible for the polymorphism that I'm going to introduce here. So I'm going to start this. I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to do it in 2, and then we'll say goodbye, unfortunately. So let's do it. So I'm going to do something weird. I'm going to say, okay, let's build an item category class. Item category equals new item category. Great. And I'm going to create this class, and this would be a production class. Great. So creating a class is not very smart, but not very damaging. So now I'm going to do something very strange. I'm going to take this item category and I'm going to pass it around to every single method. Okay. Now the way to do it, as you've seen, I'm passing it around. I'm hitting Alt Enter in IntelliJ's case, and I'm adding it into as the next parameter. Okay. So I'm doing that, and things should work. Great. So I think it would actually be best, because I have 2 more minutes. Akos, correct me if I'm wrong. So I think it would be best to stop right now. I'm truly sorry for all the technicalities problem that I have experienced. There is about 10 more minutes of coding, of nice coding for this project, but I think I'm going to end it here. And if someone wants to ask questions later on in the session or in the private, so I will be happy to answer them.
Okay, Tal, thank
Yes.
you so much for the talk. Honestly, you call the talk Refactoring Frenzy, and you truly delivered Refactoring Frenzy over here. So thank you for being true to your word. Mm-hmm. I have actually a question before we close the talk that would personally help me. What are the best resources you think to get started with these refactoring exercises?
Okay, so there are several websites which are websites for katas. The only problem with them is that you don't have like the good solutions for them. Okay, so it's actually hard to find good solutions, because just practicing a kata without seeing someone solve it very well, it's not very helpful. So this is something that is actually missing. There are several YouTube videos. I can recommend them later on, but it's not that easy to find some things that are really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And let me just check here. Okay, this is a cool question.
Okay.
I would like to ask you as well. Attila is asking, how many times did you do this Gilded Rose kata?
Oh, too much. Too many times. Too many times. And this is why I'm so disappointed about this session that I didn't have time. So actually, I think I've presented this session in front of an audience about, I would say, over 70 times. Okay.
Over 70. Wow.
For presentations. So imagine that I practiced it before. So lots of time. Okay. For me, it's like too much. I remember everything by heart. But I still remember the first time that I did it in front of an audience after I've practiced it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. And I think it improved my coding skills and my refactoring skills and my velocity in a great way. So I highly recommend on practicing this kind of katas.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.